Here we go again then, folks. Welcome to Carrow Road. This time Norwich City looking to end what is a pretty dismal record here against Leicester City, who themselves are 1 win in 10 and in need of a little pick-me-up. I am kind of Southwell. Paddy Davitt is not here. Hopefully he will be here shortly to dissect the team news with me, but I will bring that to you as and when it drops. And I feel it is going to be good news for those people who like attacking. We will bring that to you as and when it drops. But Norwich, clearly, we all know the record, 7 in a row here in all competitions, 6 straight championship defeats. Today, if they lose, I think they equal the record in English football, or certainly the lower levels of English football, which is Burton, who have lost 8 on the spin. Only 3 clubs that have done 7. I think Forest Green and a couple of others, which is interesting. A few things to be aware of as I came in today. Massive police presence outside the ground, including dog units and a row of police vans and police presence around the place. The players arrived today by coach, which is unusual. Every manager does it differently, but typically Norwich City have arrived via their own cars. They park behind the south stand and then make their own way here. That wasn't the case today. On police advice, they got a coach into the ground. Right, let's bring you the team then. This is how Norwich City line up this afternoon. I'll flash it at the bottom of your screen. It is Kovacevic in goal, Fisher, Medic, Darling and Kenny McLean as the captain. We're expecting that to be at left back. Topic and Matson at the midfield too. And then what is, I think, quite an exciting front four from a Norwich City perspective. Makama, Chris Goran starts, Oscar Schwartau starts, and Josh Sargent starts. To run that through you again, we're expecting that to be a 4-2-3-1. It is rolling across the bottom of the screen for you now. It is Kovacevic in goal, Fisher, Medic, Darling and McLean as the back four, Topic and Matson as the midfield two. Makama and Schwartau, we're expecting that to be on either flank, with Chris Goran behind Josh Sargent. The subs bench, Dan Grimshaw, Shane Duffy, Rory McConville, Jacob Wright, Tony Springer, Amankwa Forson, Emi Marcondes, Matej Jurasek and Errol Mundle-Smith. Makes the bench. So that is how Norwich City line up. I can see my colleague making his way up the steps now, so we'll get Paddy's thoughts on it. But some very interesting thoughts today. Richard saying better formation. Finley asking obviously about Jacob Wright. James thinks the inclusion of Jakov Medic is a concern, and that is the team that Liam Manning has picked to try and end this dismal run of Carrow form, generally winless in 10, but also particularly Carrow Road form in front of supporters that feel slightly mutinous after everything that has happened in the last week or so.
Hello, Connor.
Hello, Mr. Davitt. How are you?
Very well, very well. I'm not late. I'm just, I'm late, but I was stopped by somebody who just wanted to let me know. They didn't want to be named, but he said the body language wasn't great from that group and that head coach coming off the coach. And also, apparently, I think you might know this anyway, but they normally come in south stand and around the perimeter of the pitch. Apparently, they've gone straight in the City stand today. Yeah,
they have, and I can tell you for why. There's a big. I'm sure you saw it as you came in. There's a big police presence outside, dog units and all sorts. That is on police advice. We're told that they were informed to get a coach there after obviously the events that happened last weekend and some of the protesting behind the south stand. They've got a coach into the ground today. You're dissecting and digesting that lineup. I think the place to start, Paddy, is that front four: Makama, Chris Goran, Schwartau and Sargent. We are clutching at straws at the moment from a Norwich City perspective, but I'm not sure exciting maybe is a stretch, but it's definitely some. I'm quite looking forward to seeing how that four functions and operates.
How do you see it sort of shape?
I think it's a 4-2-3-1. Yeah, Chris Goran behind Sargent, Schwartau and Makama wide.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'll tell my anecdote. You already know I was in Morrison's yesterday afternoon, Riverside. Who do I see? Getting his evening food, Mr. Chris Gordon. Couldn't quite see what was in his basket, but hopefully it was plenty of protein so he can run about today
for 90 minutes
and carry on where he left off. And that, I thought it in real time at Hillsborough, having seen the highlights again. Not saying they deserved to win the game, but that was a good header. That was a good headed chance. It was a good save by Horvath in stoppage time. Jurasek's corner, outswinging corner. And off the back of him scoring, it just underlines for me that he has to be in the side now because he does offer you something in the penalty area. Yes, he needs the service as Sargent does, but his innate instincts when the ball's going in and around the box is to get on the end of things. We've had, as we know, 6 or 7 games missing through a knee injury, but if he's available now and he's clearly in a fitness state that he can start, has to be a staple in this team. And in a bigger picture, whether that's enough, time will tell. But for him not to have started today, I think would have been the wrong call from Liam Manning. So that's definitely the right call. And Makama, I think he's shown enough that he's probably now a starter in this mix. And Schwartau, my concern with him is, and again, he had a very good chance midweek. He had 2 chances here last weekend. He doesn't look a natural in those positions to me. Those 12 yards out, 16 yards out. You'd want Sargent in those positions. So not disputing that he is one who has probably took a step forward under Liam Manning, one of the very, very, very few in this squad. But I don't think with each passing game I see him in those forward areas that he is the solution really in here and now. But he's doing a job, and he's doing it probably better than some of the other options they've had when they've had an opportunity. So you asked me about the 4. Yeah, that's probably as good a 4 now. Forson's the only one who would come into the equation, and they clearly feel he's a little bit of a step back in terms of fitness and readiness to go from the start of the game. But other than that, Jurassic, isn't it? Who I thought did reasonably bright when he came on second half, but he doesn't trust him to start a game. That's obvious. Likewise, Jacob Wright. He's simply not having Jacob Wright in his central midfield equation.
What do you make of that defensive line? Clearly, I think Kenny McLean at left back was inevitable, given obviously Jeffrey Schlupp going off on Wednesday night. Liam Manning saying he was getting scanned yesterday, but initially he was kind of talking around months, wasn't he? Medic back in. Interestingly, Shane Duffy and Rory McConville, who were in last weekend and also for Wednesday, both out for Jakov Medic. So yet more shuffling of the pack defensively.
Yeah, that was who they put up there. Charlie's not having Medic ahead of McConville. I think it's a huge surprise Duffy retains his place on the bench where he's finished the game midweek. Too much noise around him and not of the positive vibe, really. And let's be honest, in that game and a half, did he justify what he was doing on the pitch, really retaining his place? And the big build-up that he got pre that return from the owner and to a lesser extent the head coach? No. So you're swapping one out for another one, really. And maybe there was an argument for retaining him because you're having to make that change on the left-hand side with McLean. But, we think that's a 4, do we, Connor?
Yes.
Can't see how it wouldn't be any other way. So what you want, as always, with Medic is that he doesn't get isolated in those channel pockets for pace 1v1 because he'll get found out. And what you also want is Harry Darling to return to the player we saw at the start of the season, not the one who looks bereft of confidence. And talking of channels, the amount of time Norwich have been exposed in the last 2 or 3 games, Hull, Swansea, Sheffield even, and he just looks like he's in a haze to me. He's on the turn, his decision making isn't right, he's a split second slow to react. It can only be a lack of confidence, and that's a worry because he was by some distance probably the pick of the summer recruits really at the start of the season, and it's maybe symptomatic of the malaise that is now infected this club. But he needs to come back to something approaching the early part of the season. Otherwise, Leicester will take advantage of that, as many other teams have done this season.
Let's bring you that Leicester team. 3 changes for them as well after what was a midweek draw with Middlesbrough. They've got Begovic in goal, in for Stolarczyk, who limped out of their midweek draw. His first start for a significant time, the veteran. Their back 4 is Akoli, Vestergaard, Nelson, and Ricardo Pereira. Midfield 3 of Harry Winks, a return to Carrow Road for Ollie Skip, who will be here playing in front of supporters for I think the first time. Did he come back with Spurs, possibly? And James makes up that midfield 3. Fatawu, who's been quite impressive towards the start of the season, scored some good goals, and then 2 of Ayew and Daka. So looks like a 4-3-3, 2-3-1 for them. Their subs bench is Vitis, Faze, Thomas, Chowdhury, Samare, Decordova-Reid, Monga, Mavididi, and Carranza, which I think when you go through their bench, Paddy, as you always seem to do with teams that come down from the Premier League, you realise the strength in depth they've had. I spoke to our colleague who covers Leicester and said defensively they've been okay. They've been maybe similarly to Norwich, a little bit short on creativity. There's been maybe a perception from fans that perhaps players aren't looking that interested at the moment for what the championship battle entails. Clearly there's some pressure on Marty Cifuentes, but, and this is the key point, we've been here before with opposing teams at Carrow Road this season.
Yeah, absolutely, and they've managed to respond. So yeah, those names on that team sheet, pound for pound, they're better players than Norwich. We have to be brutally honest about it. So if they don't come here and get the result today, then that probably is a reflection of the Cifuentes. A lot of the parallels with Manning are hard to ignore. A club who went and tried to find somebody who they felt was proven to a degree, less so than Manning, but over the course and distance knew what they were doing. And with this group of players, he would be able to show that. Hasn't happened purely from an external vantage of looking where they are in the table. I had a bit of a chat myself in the media room to one or two, and I think their fan base have expressed the displeasure towards Cifuentes. So I've seen it called the El Sacchio Derby on social media today. Whether that transpires or
We've had a few of those in the last few weeks, and here we are.
I mean, I've just looked up and you can see where the dividing line is there at the South Stand. They're obviously coming in big numbers today. So, as you would expect, a well-supported club who've been in the Premier League and expect to be at least contesting to go back there, as Norwich were. And it's not happened. So, but, you just look at that squad, the players in that 11, and if they're anywhere on it, then they will cause, as I've seen one or two already point out here, a little bit of a makeshift Norwich back four trouble, particularly if they don't get the protection they need from Topic and Matson. If that is the case, and you give those attacking type of players at this level time and space, you're going to need Kovacevic to be a shot-stopping best, I think.
You are, and just flash this point up from Michael, who, and this is interesting maybe to where we're going to segue this conversation, have Norwich deployed such an attacking starting lineup this season? Feels a bit, what have I got to lose from Liam Manning? And I guess, to be frank, it is at that stage, isn't it, given where he's at with this fan base and where this fan base is at generally with him. There probably is a little bit of an element that today it kind of does, maybe whether it will prove to be or not, but certainly walking into it, I've had people who cover these games for national titles kind of saying to me, like, surely it's got to be win or bust today. So there is, even if nothing happens on the other side of it, that's kind of the sense pre-game from maybe people who aren't inside this club.
Yeah, well, I mean, quite right. It's externally, anyway, viewed in those terms because, look at the metrics. Every single one of them are, diabolically poor. And it can't. I mean, I know we had a bit of fun the other week with it can't go on, it can. Mick McCarthy but it cannot go on. You cannot. If the backstop is from inside that football club, at the top of the football club, League One is not something we want to countenance. This ridiculous for me sort of narrative that flowed out of the Atanasio Norfolk touch point that had taken a step back would allow them to do a Birmingham or a Wrexham to an extent and reset and go again. I don't get that sense at all from anybody inside that football club. That would be on every level a disastrous turn of events. So if that's you can't countenance that as an outcome, then at what point does it get to that this has to now change to avoid the hard cliff edge, as it were? And if this would be 8 defeats today in League and Cup, more points adrift going into another international break. At what point does Mark Atanasio feel this is a tipping point? I think I've been asking Liam Manning about his future since here against Wrexham, so that isn't new. But clearly, with each passing week, each passing defeat, each passing question marks against, thank you very much, around the coach, the sporting director, the people in the executive, and increasingly now, and this is where it will get to, it will be Mark Atanasio Norfolk Holdings. Make no mistake about it, because if there's this inertia and the fan base are feeling that nothing is going to change in terms of the football inside of the operation, then it will in very short order pivot towards the ownership. They have to be ready for that, I'm afraid, because if you're saying or messaging that League One is something we cannot even entertain, then you need to do something about it, and pretty quickly, because if not, it's 4 points to Oxford now. What's it going to be if you roll this on to turn of the year, if nothing has changed materially on the pitch? And I don't mean by that a win today and then they go to Birmingham the other side of the international break and lose, because that's just treading water. It needs to be the block of results that a Derby have put together recently, one or two other clubs, and that Liam Manning himself has referenced about how quickly it can turn. Yes, how quickly it can turn, but it's only going to turn if that head coach and this group of players pull their finger out and can produce a level of performance that is far better than even, let's not kid ourselves, Sheffield Wednesday were the better team.
Yeah.
In terms of the game control, in terms of the chance creation, they were the better team, and that is a team who, well, they're a basket case. They're a basket case of a club, and yet they walked off that pitch probably doing enough to win the game. Certainly in terms of controlling the game. So where is the confidence that under Liam Manning, this group of Norwich players, going to be able to come here today against a team who, albeit not started great in this season, but have Premier League grade players and are going to control the game and going to create chances and going to take chances? There's absolutely zero confidence of that happening. So if we get to the other end of this game today and it's an 8th consecutive championship, well, 7 in the championship plus a League Cup exit, Is that not a tipping point? For me, the tipping point was reached weeks ago, but there's only one person really who matters in all of this, and he made it quite clear in his Norwich touch point that it was for the time being going to be status quo. Well, if that was the case, then the status quo hasn't really induced an upturn in the intervening period. So if we don't get one today, let's see what the international break brings. But I'm less inclined to get aerated about Ben Napper's comments, which were probably penned weeks ago.
Could have been changed, though.
Well, depend. They'll turn around and say, well, the printing run and this, that, the other.
Could have been changed.
Well, I'm not disputing that, but what I'm saying is nobody is naive enough to think that he sat down two days ago after Sheffield Wednesday and penned those words. So
I'm sure, for example, there would have been stuff in there about the stadium works. There's no mention really of them. I think at the end of Zoe's bit, there's a bit about them putting that on pause. So if it was or wasn't written a few weeks ago, it was released yesterday. So that's what the fans are going to see and read, aren't they? It's kind of the latest point. And due to him, I guess, maybe not speaking in the period before that, that's what they are going to take from that, those words there.
Don't disagree, but I'm just saying for context, as much use as that man is getting, nobody really clearly thinks that he. But the point about, well, why do you message that out? As I've said to somebody in there, if that was 3 or 4 weeks ago, that interview, you think, well, it's coming out in a month's time. What if the results continue to go on the line that they have followed? Look at the context of those quotes. The fact that hasn't happened clearly is, again, pretty poor signal for people who are supposed to be in charge of messaging these things out, like it was with the Carrow Road revamp. It's own goal after own goal after own goal. We've not even got into that statement about fan behaviours today.
What do you make
the parallel with a centre-back who's calling fans gimps and knobs. It's ridiculous. But, so was the revamp plan being announced on the Friday before the derby when you needed calls for unity. Ridiculous. So that's why, going back to my previous point, somebody, i.e. Mark Antonazio, needs to metaphorically get this club by the scruff of the neck and get it sorted out. Because if not, they're sleepwalking to League One.
Yeah, I mean, my next question was going to be on the basis of everything that we've heard in the last 24 hours, that statement, which we're led to believe did sort of come from ownership level. To obviously the accounts and what bleak reading they made in terms of, I think it's 122% of turnover being spent on wages, which is just not sustainable, be it a rich owner or not. Coupled with obviously the kind of red rag to a bull statements from Ben Napper and all of those, and kind of everything is fine, head in the sand type stuff. What are you expecting this place to be like today? Because if you're a fan coming here and you've seen what you've seen this season, we saw protests last week, and of course it's important to state, even if people do want to protest, it's very important it doesn't get personal, it doesn't go over the line of what it should do. But those fans kind of have every right to feel angry. It's hard to offer a counter argument at the moment to those people. So what are you expecting this place to be like today? Because I think we've seen typically, often when the game starts, these fans will give them the benefit of the doubt, and then actually it's been when a goal has gone in. I guess my question is, do you think it's going to be pretty toxic from the start, or do you think there will be that sort of leeway given?
No, I don't think it will. I mean, it is a factor in play, but it's the remembrance sort of pause as well before the game, and the respect that will require and will be delivered by these fans. I have no doubt about that. But that takes that kind of sense of pitchforks and frustration and fury from the start of the game. I thought it was. I've seen that point made about don't sing on the ball City and maybe Napper out or just silence. I mean, I'll be interested if that catches hold and that becomes a thing, because that would be in a different way, maybe a more respectful way to sort of express the deep unhappiness. But no, I think it'll be like it was against Hull. I think they'll give this group from the start a chance. But if it's the same as Hull and they don't produce enough of a performance to rally behind, and then Leicester get their noses in front, batten down the hatches, because it'll be everything that Hull was and more, guaranteed. So, but no, I'd be surprised if it's for a minute. Yeah, there'll probably be a few bars from certain areas of the ground towards Napper just prior to kick-off. But I just think all things being considered, it'll be, okay, we're here today, we're Norwich fans, we've come here, we want our team to win. We desperately want our team to win.
Need the points. Let's be honest about it. That's where they're at. Every point is a prisoner at the moment.
They're not going to, from the start, I don't think, jeopardise that by creating the atmosphere that it was at the end of the game last weekend. But by the same token, these players, this head coach, they know they're coming into an environment where they're on the thinnest of thin ice, and that's being kind. And if they don't produce on the pitch, then expect everything they've had, but probably on an even more accelerated scale than we've had thus far this season. And it wasn't pleasant here towards the end against Hull. That might be seen as a tea party.
There's a bloke who's just appeared near the opposition dugout. He's an absolute ringer for Claudio Ranieri, which is what made me. Which he's got his back to us now, but yeah, almost double took there. Who you speaking? Sorry.
No. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, no. For me, it's hope that this team finally deliver at Carrow Road, and if they don't, then as I say, I don't really want to countenance what the final whistle and after the game might look like, but we would be naive to think that it wouldn't be another vocal demonstration of the fury that a lot of these fans now, various different demographics, various different age ranges, but they're all pretty. I get the sense now united in a just fed up, to use a diplomatic term, with the direction of travel at this football club and the sense they're getting talked at rather than with, and they're not being listened to. And if they're not being listened to, then maybe those who matter have to listen to these fans instead.
Scoreline?
0-2.
Oh dear, yeah, I'm with you. I'm forecasting defeat. I think Norwich will get a goal. 2-1 I'm going to go for, and another dismal day of disappointment here at the Fun Factory of Carrow Road, which it is at this moment in time. Hopefully we are proven wrong and they can muster something. Pinkin.com, the place to go for all of your coverage, reaction and analysis throughout the afternoon. It's going to be an interesting one. This, of course, the last game before the last international break before March. Let's see if it's going to be a busy one or not. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon.